Hello and welcome to The Top Story, the podcast with the headlines of the day from our correspondents around the world. I'm Qizhu. Coming up in this edition, French President Emannuel Macron says he will announce the nomination of a new Prime Minister within the coming days, after Michel Barnier was ousted in a no-confidence vote. South Korea's ruling party has warned of the danger President Yoon Suk-yeol poses, citing potential extreme actions like the emergency martial law. And international mediators have reportedly resumed negotiations for a Gaza ceasefire. We begin in Europe. French President Emannuel Macron says he will nominate a new Prime Minister within the coming days to replace Michel Barnier, who was ousted in a no-confidence vote. Macron said he will instruct the new Prime Minister to form a government of general interest representing all the political forces. He said the new government will present a revised budget at the very beginning of next year. The president also reaffirmed his commitment to the presidency amid calls for him to resign. The no-confidence vote marked a significant political crisis for France. It forced a prime minister to step down for the first time since 1962 and made Barnier's government the first to fall to such a motion in over 6 decades. Macron has tasked Barnier with leading a caretaker administration to manage current affairs. Stuart Smith has more from Paris.
In his televised address to the nation, President Macron attempted to offer words of reassurance. He said that the country would have a new prime minister in the next few days, though he didn't yet give the name of who that might be. But he said that that prime minister would form a limited government with limited powers, as legislation allows, in order to form a new government and therefore pass a budget into the next year. This was what was at the heart of Michel Barnier's no-confidence vote. He tried to pass a budget that was too ambitious, which neither the far left nor the far right could support. President Macron's plan here is that this limited government with limited powers would pretty much, it seems, mirror 2024's budget in order that it's not so controversial. But that means that the very issues Michel Barnier was trying to tackle, France's ballooning deficit, for example, and also a problem with getting funds into the treasury, will not be tackled as he had hoped and, as he said, was necessary. But choice words as well by President Macron in a very combative speech, blaming the far right for supporting this no-confidence motion for what he said were political reasons.
I will never take the blame for the lack of responsibility of others, and notably lawmakers who choose knowingly to bring down the budget and the government of France a few days before Christmas.
Even with a new Prime Minister in place, the chaos may not be over. The Parliament here in France remains fractured, split around 1/3 to the left, 1/3 centrist and 1/3 right, with no clear majority, meaning that any new Prime Minister may face the exact same hurdles as Michel Barnier, and too could face a no-confidence motion if he tries or she tries to do anything too drastic, which means the only way this deadlock could change could come only as late as next summer, the earliest time new parliamentary elections could be held. And for people here in France, it would be another frustrating example and a frustrating outcome, a consequence of quite how fractured French politics has become.
That was Stuart Smith reporting from Paris. Elsewhere in Europe, Romanian authorities have alleged Russian meddling in the country's presidential elections as candidate Călin Georgescu won the first round of the vote. Russia has denied such accusations. Authorities in Bucharest also alleged preferential treatment of Georgescu by TikTok, an allegation that a social media platform denies. The European Union has stepped up monitoring of TikTok. Pablo Gutierrez has more.
The classified intelligence report suggests that the sudden rise of far-right candidate Călin Georgescu during the first round of Romania's presidential election was influenced by foreign interference, with evidence pointing out to Russia, according to Romanian authorities. Now, this bombshell report comes 3 days just before Romanians head to the polls to elect in the second round of elections their next president. The report says that TikTok was used through paid influencers and unmarked political content to promote Georgescu's candidacy, Georgescu's campaign, which is against Romanian election laws. Now, this has raised concerns with the country's allies. The United States issued a strong warning saying that any departure from Romania's pro-Western policies could have a severe consequence. They say that because of the country's position in the Black Sea and its support to Ukraine is a key member of NATO. On the other hand, the European Commission is doubling down. They're stepping up their efforts to monitor social media companies, and they're asking TikTok to retain any and all records in relation to Mr. Georgescu and the first round of elections here in the country. We spoke with various political analysts. They tell me this could have a chilling impact in the country's democracy.
That was Pablo Gutierrez reporting. Turning to Asia, the leader of South Korea's ruling party has warned of dire consequences if President Yoon Suk-yeol remains in office. Han Dong-hoon was speaking at an emergency meeting of the party leadership. He said the president poses a danger to the country and its people amid concern that Yoon would repeat extreme actions like the emergency martial law earlier this week if he continues to serve as president. Han added that he has credible evidence that Yoon mobilized troops to arrest major politicians on the night of the martial law. The country's special warfare commander says he will refuse to implement any new martial law orders. Opposition parties have submitted an impeachment motion against the president, planning a vote on Saturday. Yoon declared the martial law Tuesday night before repealing it on Wednesday, as the parliament voted against it. Jack Barton reports from Seoul.
Things are starting to move quickly now. We were expecting the impeachment vote 7 p.m. local time on Saturday. We're now told that could be sped up. The reason it was scheduled for Saturday is so that the opposition party could try and convince more of the ruling party lawmakers to cross the floor and vote with them. 200 votes would be needed in the 300-seat National Assembly. 192 lawmakers have already indicated they will vote for impeachment. So it would just need 8 members of the ruling party. But those comments we just heard from Han Dong-hoon, the head of the ruling party, indicate that they may now be in the mood to cross the floor and vote for impeachment. It's still unclear exactly what he means by those comments, but we can have a listen now to a little more of what Han, as well as the head of the opposition party, had to say.
The president is not even admitting that it was wrong to declare martial law. Therefore, if President Yoon Suk-yeol is allowed to continue running the government affairs, there is a significant risk of extreme actions, like reattempting to impose martial law, which could potentially put the Republic of Korea and its citizens in great danger.
We cannot let the president, who threatens lives of people through unconstitutional and illegal acts, be in charge of national affairs, not even for a second. We must suspend him of all duties as soon as possible and let people decide whether he can stay in the seat.
Now, in terms of the risk of martial law being imposed again, rumours, of course, have been swirling, some of them fed by those comments by Han Dong-hoon. But we've heard from the Joint Military Chiefs of Staff. They've issued a statement saying there will be no martial law. Even if the military is ordered by the president to impose martial law, they would disobey that order. So they have let the public know it absolutely will not happen under any condition.
That was Jack Barton on the political crisis in South Korea. Turning to the Middle East, a Hamas official has reported that international mediators have resumed negotiations for a Gaza ceasefire. A report says that a deal to end the 14-month conflict is hopeful and within reach. Qatar previously halted the ceasefire negotiations involving mediators from Egypt and the US over a lack of progress between Israel and Hamas. With the talks underway again, Israel is expected to pull back some forces, and displaced Palestinians will be able to return home. Jonathan Regev has more from Tel Aviv.
It was about a week ago when we said Qatar is no longer involved, so this is no longer the case. Qatar is in the picture, but the main backer now, the main mediator is Egypt. And after talks between the Palestinian factions mediated by Egypt, there's now a proposal by Israel saying that there will be a 60-day ceasefire, not the end of the war, but a ceasefire. And during that ceasefire, this according to the Egyptians, Israel will move its forces out of the Rafah crossing, but only the Rafah crossing, not from other areas in the Gaza Strip, not the Philadelphia corridor, not the Netzarim corridor. During those 60 days, there will be no military operations. And a week into this ceasefire, some kind of a hostage swap will begin. Hamas will give a certain number of Israeli living hostages, and Israel will release hundreds of Palestinian prisoners from Israeli jails. This is according to what we're hearing from Egypt. Some kind of there were negotiations with Hamas, and we know that Israel is involved as well. Something seems to be moving. We're seeing more movement on this issue of the hostage deal than we've seen before, also with the backing of both the American presidents, the current one, Joe Biden, and the next one, Donald Trump, who is well aware of the negotiations going on.
That was Jonathan Regev reporting. In North America, another migrant caravan has set off from southern Mexico, hoping to reach the southern border of the U.S. before Donald Trump assumes office as the president. About 1,500 people are estimated to be making a march north. This comes as 3 U.S. soldiers face federal charges for allegedly smuggling undocumented migrants into Texas. Tony Waterman reports.
A group of about 1,500 migrants, including families, are walking their way to the U.S. southern border, a journey that started in Mexico near the border with Guatemala. They're often traveling at night to avoid the heat, carrying small backpacks, some with bicycles or with small children on their shoulders. And they are desperate to get here before January 20th, when Trump is sworn in as president. He is promising to initiate the largest mass deportation in American history on day one of his new administration, potentially impacting 11 million undocumented people already in the U.S. These migrants also worry that he will just close the borders completely.
We have to move forward. There is no other way. There is no other option. I can't go back to Venezuela.
There's so much uncertainty one has as a human being, seeing so much sacrifice one has made to get here, and there are people who simply do not care about the sacrifice of others.
Their chances of actually reaching the border, though, are slim. Mexican officials have been breaking up these caravans as they head north. And Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum assured Trump in a phone call last week that migrants are being taken care of further south. This, of course, after the incoming U.S. president threatened 25% tariffs if illegal migration and drug trafficking wasn't stopped. Meanwhile, a number of news outlets are reporting a shocking new video that appears to show a Border Patrol SUV striking a migrant along the Mexico-California border at a high rate of speed. The individual does get up and run off, but this has sparked calls for an investigation. Another investigation is also underway after 3 U.S. soldiers stationed in Texas were arrested and charged with smuggling undocumented migrants into the country. They were apprehended after a high-speed chase with Border Patrol agents. Officials alleging messages on their phone indicate a conspiracy to smuggle non-citizens into the U.S.
That was Tony Waterman reporting. Finally, in Africa, government officials in Sudan say an attack by the Rapid Support Forces in the south of the country has killed at least 20 civilians. The RSF has denied the accusations. The RSF and the Sudanese armed forces have been locked in fierce battles since April last year. Naba Muhyiddin has more from Port Sudan.
The situation in Sudan is really dire, and it's beyond dire, especially in Al-Fashir, where RSF is obviously targeting civilians and civilian gatherings, and even displacement camps. The governor of Darfur, Commander Arko Mannawi, said that the RSF targeted the town of Abu Zurega south northern Al-Fashir and killed 20 people. He described it as a massacre. A lot of eyewitnesses confirmed the same, while the RSF right now is denying all of the accusations. The RSF also is accused with hampering aid delivery. MSF and many international organizations confirm that RSF targeting civilians and the shelling in different locations in Al-Fashir is definitely hampering aid delivery to hundreds of thousands of people in Al-Fashir. The situation is really bad and beyond dire, and people are starving to death in Zamzam camp and in many camps in Al-Fashir. There is also development in the fighting and the fighting fronts in different places, especially in Khartoum and in Al Jazeera, where the Sudanese military is making advances towards Al Jazeera, and people are expecting that it will restore Madani town, which fell under the control of the RSF last December of 2023. People are very optimistic as the Sudanese military is making advances by gaining new grounds and controlling some parts of Khartoum and also in Al Jazeera. The situation in Sudan generally is very dire, and people are in large parts of not only in the capital, but large parts of war zones are starving, and the hunger crisis looms as people lost most of their savings, their jobs. Food aid is really hampered by the fighting and by the continuous fighting between the Sudanese army and the RSF.
That was Naba Muhuddin with the latest on the conflict in Sudan. Now, recapping the headlines, French President Emmanuel Macron says he will nominate a new prime minister within the coming days after Michel Barnier was ousted in the no-confidence vote. South Korea's ruling party has warned of the danger President Yoon Suk-yeol poses, citing potential extreme actions like the emergency martial law. And international mediators have reportedly resumed negotiations for a ceasefire in Gaza. And that's it for this edition of The Top Story, a podcast that brings you world headlines every weekday. For more news in politics, business, sports and culture, you can subscribe to The Beijing Hour, a one-hour podcast news magazine program. We welcome and appreciate all ratings and reviews. I'm Qi Zhi. Thank you for listening.